Clappity clap.
Hello, everybody. Probably one of the most asked questions that we get about our sourdough is how do I store it? And that's an excellent question. I am not a very good adult, and I often dig into the bread and I eat one or two pieces when I first get it, and then I forget all about it and I leave it in the paper bag, and maybe 1 or 2 days later it's a hard, angry, solid nugget of deliciousness, but it's hard as a rock. So I want to give you some of the do's and don'ts of sourdough storage. So our sourdough, it's 3 ingredients. It's flour, water, and salt. No preservatives, no artificial colorings or flavors, really simple ingredients. So it can stay at room temperature for 4 to 5 days without any kind of issue. The best way, if you are like me and you maybe can consume an entire loaf of bread in 1 to 2 days, what you want to do is after you cut the slices that you're going to use, you can actually just store it crumb side down, cut side down on a cutting board for overnight. That's totally reasonable. The crust acts as its own bag. It acts as its own kind of like airtight storage container. So as long as your crumb side is face down, you should be okay for a day or 2 like this. So a day or 2 have gone by, or if you don't anticipate that you're going to finish the whole loaf in the next day or so, and you don't want to do the cut down method, the other best way to keep it at room temperature is by using one of these handy dandy beeswax lined linen bread bags. And so we do actually sell these at Chartier. I have seen them at, there's a store right down the street from us called Town Goods. They have them as well. So it has kind of the same feeling as the beeswax wrap, but it's in a bag format. So you can actually take your sourdough, pop it in, try get as much of the air out as possible, and then just roll it down. It will soften the crust a little bit, so it won't be as crusty and beautiful as it is from the first day that you bought it, but it still stays nice and fresh like there for that 4 to 5 day time frame. Really, there is 2 ways to store your sourdough. Number 1 is at room temperature on the counter, either with the cut side down, in one of the beeswax bags. You can put it in saran as well. Saran is a great option to wrap it in and leave on the counter if your kids don't really like a hard crust. Our daughter has orthodontics in, and to be honest, she never really did like a crusty loaf. So if she's going to enjoy the bread, we usually do wrap it in saran wrap. If you leave it in saran for like a day, it really does soften the crust quite a bit. The other option is to freeze. What you want to avoid is putting it in the fridge. Sourdough and a fridge does not mix, should not be done. The fridge just does not have the right humidity. It will dry it out. It will make it taste kind of like a fridge. I would avoid the fridge at all costs if possible. So if you're going to freeze, we do have a lot of clients that will buy multiple loaves, one to enjoy day of or next day, but they're kind of handy to have for use throughout the week. If you can't always get to your favorite bakery, it's good to have it in the freezer. And the freezer is kind of a really good addition for your sourdough process. So you have 2 options, and you really have to think about how you're going to use your sourdough throughout the week. If your family or your household is the type of household that would use the loaf of bread maybe to accompany like soup, and you're going to reheat the whole loaf all at once and eat the whole loaf with the dinner that you're having, your best bet is to wrap in saran wrap and then put in a Ziploc bag, get all the air out, and then pop it in the freezer. So that way it is sealed as tightly as possible. We're leaving out all the humidity as much as we can. and we'll talk about how to refresh it from the freezer in a separate video. The other option is if you're more the kind of person that uses their sourdough, say in the morning for toast and jam, you don't really want to take out the whole loaf all at once. So what you actually should do is slice your sourdough into the same size piece that you would normally use for your toast. And then you would actually put it into the Ziploc bag, frozen in offset staggers. You don't want to put it back together so it looks like a loaf. Otherwise, you'll be digging your fingers and forks and knives trying to pry it all apart. So you want to make it super, super easy to separate once it's in the freezer. You would cut it, offset it, and kind of stagger it, put it back in the Ziploc, and pop it in the freezer. You can then pull it out, pop it right into the toaster, or ideally leave it at room temperature for 20 minutes. Not that anybody has time for that in the morning. So truthfully, I just take mine from the freezer, pop it in the toaster, and you would be hard pressed to know that it had ever been frozen. It's like a loaf. Otherwise,